The crystal halls of Nexus Prime had never seen such panic. Commander Zexithara walked quickly through the corridors, his forearms clutching data tablets that contained the most disturbing intelligence reports in galactic history. The emergency meeting had been called by the High Council, and every member was already seated in the great chamber when he arrived. The chamber itself was a marvel of engineering. Made from living crystal that grew from the planet's core, it could hold representatives from all 847 member species of the Galactic Council. Today, only the most important leaders were present. The air hummed with translation devices working overtime as dozens of different languages filled the space. High Arbiter Yolmeth, ancient even by galactic standards, raised one crystalline appendage for silence. The being's body was translucent, with light flowing through internal channels that had been carved by thousands of years of life. When Yolmeth spoke, the words came out as musical tones that the translators converted to speech. Commander Zexithara will present his findings about the humans. Zexithara activated the holographic display in the center of the chamber. Images of human military equipment appeared in the air above the delegates. Crude metal ships with obvious weapon mountings, soldiers wearing basic armor and carrying simple projectile weapons, combat footage from human history showing massive explosions and burning cities. 3 years ago, we welcomed humanity into the Galactic Council, Zexithara began. We thought they were like the Keplerians or the Vorthan, peaceful scientists who had stumbled onto space travel through luck and determination. We were wrong. The hologram shifted to show human military doctrine files that had been secretly obtained, battle plans that called for complete destruction of enemy forces, training manuals that taught soldiers how to fight in any environment, against any enemy, weapon designs that focused on maximum damage rather than precision or elegance. Every species we have encountered developed advanced energy weapons, force fields, and non-lethal technologies before they achieved interstellar flight. Zexithara continued. Every species except humanity. They reached the stars while still using chemical explosives and kinetic projectiles. They never learned to fight clean wars because they never had clean wars. Delegate Murthak from the Aquatic Confederacy made a bubbling sound of distress. Through the translator, his words came out sharp and worried. Are you telling us that humans are still using primitive weapons? Worse, Zexithara replied. They are taking our advanced technology and making it more destructive. They have reverse-engineered our energy weapons and built versions that are 10 times more powerful, but 50 times cheaper to manufacture. They have studied our ship designs and created vessels that sacrifice everything for firepower and armor. They call it optimization. The hologram showed recent human innovations. Energy cannons that were little more than focused destruction beams. Ships that looked like flying weapon platforms. Battle armor designed to keep soldiers fighting even when badly injured. Everything humans touched became more dangerous. High Arbiter Yolmeth's light pattern shifted to deeper colors, indicating serious concern. How did our intelligence services miss this? Zexithara's mandibles clicked nervously. Because humans lie very well, and they have been studying us since the moment they joined the Council. Look at this. New images appeared. Human diplomats smiling and shaking hands with Council representatives. Human scientists working on peaceful research projects. Human colonists building agricultural settlements on garden worlds. All of it looked perfectly normal. Every human diplomat is also a military intelligence officer, Zexithara explained. Every scientist is gathering technical specifications. Every colonist is evaluating planets for strategic value. They have been mapping our defenses, studying our weaknesses, and learning how we think. And we invited them to do it. The chamber erupted in shocked conversations. Delegates from different species argued in their native languages, while the translators struggled to keep up. Some demanded immediate action. Others suggested that the humans might still be peaceful. A few wanted to verify the intelligence before making any decisions. Yolmeth called for order again. The ancient being had lived through the formation of the Galactic Council and remembered the wars that had raged before peace was established. What is your recommendation, Commander? Zexithara straightened all 4 of his arms in a formal position. We cannot simply expel humanity from the Council. They have already spread to dozens of systems and established trade relationships with our members. Military action would be catastrophic because their entire civilization is designed for war, but we also cannot allow them to continue developing their capabilities unchecked. Then what do you propose? The commander activated a new section of the hologram. It showed a carefully prepared plan with multiple phases and detailed psychological profiles of human leaders. Operation Shepherd's Rest. We give humanity a fictional enemy to fight. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Human intelligence services would receive carefully crafted information about an approaching invasion force called the Void Swarm. The evidence would include survivor testimonies from allegedly destroyed worlds, sensor readings of massive biomechanical ships, and intelligence reports suggesting that this enemy consumed entire civilizations. Humans have a saying, Zexthara explained. They claim that the best defense is a good offense. If they believe the galaxy faces an existential threat, they will unite their military forces under Council guidance to fight this enemy. We can monitor their development, control their expansion, and exhaust their resources on a threat that does not exist. Delegate Porlin from the Silicon Collective raised a crystalline appendage. What if they discover the deception? They will not, Zexthara replied confidently. Humans are paranoid and aggressive, but they are also emotional. They will see what they expect to see because they want to protect their new allies. The evidence will be completely convincing because it will be built from their own fears and assumptions about what an enemy might look like. The voting process took 6 hours. Each species had different concerns and requirements. The peaceful races worried about the ethical implications of lying to humanity. The military-focused species wanted assurance that the plan would actually contain human expansion. The scientific races needed detailed explanations of how the false evidence would be created. In the end, 47 species voted in favor of Operation Shepherd's Rest. The margin was not unanimous, but it was decisive. Humanity would be given a fake war to fight, which would allow the Council to maintain control while appearing to be helpful allies. High Arbiter Yulmeth issued the final directive. All Council intelligence services will coordinate to provide humanity with evidence of the Void Swarm threat. Military liaisons will offer assistance and guidance. Scientific exchanges will continue, but all advanced technologies must be approved by this Council before being shared. Operation Shepherd's Rest begins immediately. As the delegates filed out of the crystal chamber, many felt satisfied that they had found a solution to the human problem. They had no way of knowing that several human agents were already present on Nexus Prime, working as maintenance staff and service personnel. The entire meeting had been recorded through devices so small and advanced that Council security had never detected them. The plan to deceive humanity was already being transmitted to Earth, where human military intelligence would study every word and begin preparing for something the Council had not expected. Humans did not just prepare for threats, they prepared to eliminate them completely. The Great Deception had begun, but it would not end the way the Galactic Council imagined. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the command center of the UES Defiance, watching as holographic displays showed the most terrifying threat humanity had ever encountered. The briefing room was filled with Earth's top military leaders, all studying the evidence that Council intelligence had provided about the approaching Void Swarm. The images were horrific. Massive biomechanical ships that looked like they had grown rather than being built, worlds stripped bare of all life, leaving only empty rock floating in space. Testimonials from survivors who described watching their entire civilizations consumed by creatures that seemed to exist only to destroy. The Council estimates that the Void Swarm will reach human space within 18 months. Admiral Chen announced to the assembled officers. According to their intelligence, this enemy has already consumed 47 star systems along the galactic rim. They leave nothing behind. No survivors, no resources, no hope. General Marcus Harrison, head of Earth's ground forces, studied the tactical data with growing concern. These things fight unlike anything we have encountered before. They do not negotiate, they do not retreat, and they do not stop until everything is destroyed. How do we fight an enemy that cannot be reasoned with? Dr. Marcus Webb, Director of Human Military Research, leaned forward in his chair. We do what humans have always done when faced with extinction. We adapt, we innovate, and we hit back harder than they expect. The meeting continued for hours as military leaders from every branch of service analyzed the threat. The Void Swarm appeared to use biological ships that could repair themselves during battle. Their weapons were some kind of energy drain that literally consumed matter and converted it into more biomass for their ships. Most disturbing, they seemed to learn and adapt to enemy tactics within minutes of encountering them. Admiral Chen made the first crucial decision. We are implementing Protocol 7 immediately. All civilian ship production will be converted to military vessel construction. All research and development will focus on weapons and defense systems. Every able-bodied human between the ages of 18 and 50 will receive basic military training. Protocol 7 was humanity's total war mobilization plan. It had been developed during the darkest days of World War III, when nuclear fire had threatened to end human civilization. Now it would be used to prepare for something even worse. The transformation began immediately. Across human space, massive industrial complexes that had been building cargo ships and passenger liners were retooled to produce warships. The designs were based on Council technology, but humans modified everything to be more powerful and more durable. Dr. Webb led Project Prometheus, the crash program to develop new weapons for the coming war. Human engineers took the elegant energy weapons provided by the Council and made them bigger, more powerful, and easier to manufacture. Where Council weapons were designed to disable enemy ships with minimal damage, human versions were built to completely destroy targets. The Council fights wars like they are playing games, Dr. Webb explained to his research team. They use precise weapons that disable enemy systems without causing too much destruction. That will not work against the Void Swarm. We need weapons that can completely eliminate these biological ships before they can regenerate. The results were impressive and terrifying. Human mass driver cannons could accelerate projectiles to significant fractions of light speed. Human energy weapons focused so much power into narrow beams that they could cut through any known material. Most importantly, humans began developing kinetic weapons that used pure physics rather than advanced technology. Colonel Elena Vasquez was put in charge of training the new human military. Her job was to prepare millions of civilians for the kind of warfare that the galaxy had never seen before. The Council species fought according to rules and traditions that limited casualties and destruction. Humans prepared for total war. Forget everything you think you know about civilized combat, Colonel Vasquez told her training officers. The Void Swarm will not follow galactic conventions. They will not spare civilians or respect surrender. Our job is to prepare humanity to fight an enemy that wants to erase us completely from existence. Human military doctrine was unlike anything the Council had ever encountered. Where other species trained for limited conflicts with specific objectives, humans prepared for the complete elimination of their enemies. Every soldier learned to fight in any environment with any weapon against any opponent. Every ship was designed to keep fighting even when badly damaged. Every colony was fortified to become a military stronghold if necessary. The Council observers, who were supposed to monitor human preparations, sent increasingly worried reports back to Nexus Prime. Humanity was not just getting ready to defend themselves against the Void Swarm. They were preparing to hunt down and destroy every last trace of the enemy, no matter how long it took or how much it cost. Within 6 months, humanity had built the largest military fleet in its history. The ships looked crude compared to Council vessels, but they carried weapons that could devastate entire planets. Human soldiers trained with an intensity that shocked alien observers. Human scientists developed new technologies at a pace that seemed impossible. Most disturbing to the Council, humans began asking questions about the Void Swarm that no other species had thought to ask. They wanted detailed intelligence about enemy ship construction methods. They demanded biological samples from destroyed worlds. They requested permission to conduct reconnaissance missions beyond the galactic rim to gather first-hand information about the threat. Admiral Chen established the Human Defense Command, a military organization that coordinated all human forces across known space. Unlike the traditional Earth military structure, the HDC was designed specifically for the kind of total warfare that the Void Swarm represented. Every decision was made with one goal in mind: the complete destruction of humanity's enemies. We are not preparing to survive the Void Swarm, Admiral Chen announced in her address to the human population. We are preparing to make sure that nothing like the Void Swarm ever threatens any civilization again. When this war is over, our children will live in a galaxy where such horrors cannot exist. Human colonies that had been peaceful agricultural settlements were transformed into military production centers. Mining operations that had extracted resources for civilian use were converted to support weapons manufacturing. Even human exploration vessels were refitted with military-grade sensors and weapons systems. The Council had expected humanity to exhaust their resources preparing for the fictional threat. Instead, humans had used the crisis to unlock their full military potential for the first time since joining galactic civilization. Every aspect of human society had been optimized for warfare, and the results were becoming impossible to hide. Dr. Webb's research teams had developed weapons that Council scientists considered theoretically possible, but ethically unthinkable. Relativistic kill vehicles that could destroy planets, viral cyber warfare programs that could take control of enemy computer systems, self-replicating mining robots that could strip entire asteroid belts to build more weapons. As the 18-month deadline approached, humanity had become something the galaxy had never seen before, a civilization that was completely prepared for total war. The Council's plan to exhaust human resources had instead given humanity a reason to show the galaxy what humans were truly capable of when they felt threatened. The fake invasion was supposed to arrive soon, but humanity was no longer waiting passively for the enemy to come to them. Human scout ships had been dispatched to the galactic rim to find the Void Swarm and engage them before they could reach human space. What those ships would actually find would change everything. Captain Jake Morrison had been patrolling the galactic rim for 3 months without finding any trace of the Void Swarm. His ship, the UES Silent Running, was one of humanity's new stealth reconnaissance vessels, designed to gather intelligence while remaining completely undetected. The mission was supposed to be routine: find the enemy, report their location, and return to base with targeting data for the main human fleet. Instead, Morrison and his crew had discovered something that made no sense. The star systems where the Void Swarm had supposedly destroyed entire civilizations were not empty wastelands. They were thriving Council colonies with altered identification markers and modified star charts. Lieutenant Sarah Kim, the ship's intelligence officer, brought the evidence to Morrison's attention during the morning briefing. She activated the holographic display in the ship's small conference room and showed sensor readings from the Kepler 442 system. According to Council intelligence, this system was consumed by the Void Swarm 6 months ago, Lieutenant Kim explained. Total destruction. No survivors, all planetary matter converted to biomass for enemy ships. But look at what our sensors are actually detecting. The hologram showed a bustling star system with multiple inhabited planets, space stations, and regular shipping traffic. Energy signatures indicated advanced industrial facilities and large population centers. Most importantly, the planets showed all the signs of healthy, long-established civilizations. How is this possible? Asked Chief Engineer Tom Rodriguez. Are we looking at the wrong system? Lieutenant Kim shook her head. I have confirmed the stellar coordinates multiple times. This is definitely Kepler 442. But according to the local navigation beacons, this system is called Murthak Prime and has been a Council industrial center for over 2 centuries. Captain Morrison studied the data with growing suspicion. Show me the other supposedly destroyed systems. One by one, Lieutenant Kim displayed sensor readings from locations where the Void Swarm had allegedly struck. Every single system was intact and inhabited. Some showed signs of recent construction projects. Others had space traffic patterns that indicated they had been operating normally for years without interruption. Either our sensors are completely malfunctioning, or the Council has been lying to us about the Void Swarm, Morrison concluded. Set course for the Procyon system. According to Council intelligence, that was the site of the most recent attack. If we are going to find answers, that is where we will find them. The journey to Procyon took 4 days. During that time, Morrison and his crew analyzed every piece of evidence they had collected about the Void Swarm threat. The more they studied the data, the more inconsistencies they found. The biological ship designs were impressive, but they incorporated technologies that were clearly based on existing Council systems rather than completely alien principles. The survivor testimonies all used similar language patterns and described attacks that followed identical tactical patterns. Most suspiciously, the energy signatures from supposed Void Swarm weapons exactly matched theoretical projections that had been published in Council scientific journals. When the Silent Running reached the Procyon system, Morrison ordered complete sensor silence. If the Void Swarm was real and present, he did not want to alert them to human presence. What the sensors detected instead was even more shocking than empty space would have been. A massive Council fleet was conducting live fire exercises against target drones that had been designed to look exactly like human ships. Hundreds of vessels from different Council species were practicing attack patterns and testing weapons against mock-ups of human military designs. Lieutenant Kim activated the ship's passive listening systems and began intercepting Council communications. The conversations were in multiple alien languages, but the ship's translation systems quickly provided transcripts that left no doubt about what was happening. Target. Drone 7 represents a human heavy cruiser. Came 1. Transmission from a Council commander. Focus fire on the engine sections. Human ships are heavily armored, but they have vulnerable points at the reactor housing. Understood, replied another voice, adjusting energy weapon frequencies to penetrate human defensive screens. These exercises are proving very useful for understanding human tactical doctrine. Morrison felt his blood turn cold as he read the translations. The Council was not preparing to fight alongside humanity against the Void Swarm. They were preparing to fight against humanity itself. Chief Engineer Rodriguez discovered the final piece of evidence when he accessed the Systems Navigation database. Hidden deep in the encrypted files were the original star charts for all the systems that had allegedly been destroyed by the Void Swarm. Every single location was listed as an active Council colony or military base. The Void Swarm did not exist. It had never existed. The entire threat was a fabrication designed to manipulate humanity into a massive military buildup that would exhaust human resources and make them dependent on Council guidance. "We have been played," Morrison said quietly as he studied the evidence. "The Council created a fake enemy to control us, and we fell for it completely." Lieutenant Kim made an even more disturbing discovery when she analyzed the fabricated evidence more carefully. "Captain, the Void Swarm tactics and technologies that the Council showed us are not completely fictional. They are based on theoretical studies that Council military scientists conducted about potential threats to their civilization." She brought up the original research papers that had been used to create the fake intelligence. The documents were titled Asymmetric Warfare, Scenarios, and Theoretical Analysis of Total War Doctrines. Every aspect of the fictional Void Swarm had been taken from Council studies about the kind of enemy that could actually defeat them. "They were not just lying to us," Kim continued. "They were showing us exactly how to destroy the Galactic Council by presenting their worst fears disguised as enemy intelligence." Morrison realized the full scope of what had happened. The Council had been so focused on creating a convincing threat that they had accidentally provided humanity with a complete strategic analysis of Council weaknesses. Every Void Swarm tactic was actually a Council fear. Every piece of enemy technology was something that Council military planners had identified as potentially devastating to their defenses. The fake invasion fleet's relentless advance patterns were based on what Council strategists believed would be unstoppable. The biological ship designs incorporated technologies that Council scientists thought could overwhelm their existing weapons. The energy drain weapons were based on theoretical systems that Council military experts had concluded would be impossible to defend against. By creating the Void Swarm, the Council had essentially handed humanity a detailed instruction manual for defeating the galactic government. Morrison called an emergency meeting with his senior staff. "We have two choices. We can report this discovery to Earth and let our superiors decide how to respond. Or we can continue gathering intelligence about Council military capabilities while they think we are still looking for the Void Swarm." The decision was unanimous. The Silent Running would continue its reconnaissance mission, but now the target would be Council military installations rather than a fictional enemy. If the Council wanted to practice fighting humans, humanity would learn everything possible about Council warfare capabilities. Over the next 2 weeks, Morrison's crew gathered detailed intelligence about Council fleet deployments, defensive installations, and military technologies. They discovered that the Council's military forces were designed for ceremonial purposes rather than actual warfare. Most Council ships had impressive defensive systems but limited offensive capabilities. Their weapons were designed to disable rather than destroy, following galactic conventions that minimized casualties during conflicts. Most importantly, they learned that no Council species had fought a real war in over 3,000 years. Their military exercises were scripted events with predetermined outcomes. Their soldiers were trained for parade ground formations rather than actual combat. Their equipment was optimized for impressive displays rather than battlefield effectiveness. When the silent running finally returned to Earth, Captain Morrison carried intelligence that would change everything. The Council had not just lied about the Void Swarm, they had revealed that they were completely unprepared for the kind of total warfare that humanity had been practicing for centuries. The Great Deception was about to become humanity's greatest advantage. The war room aboard the UES Retribution had been designed to coordinate humanity's defense against the Void Swarm. Now it served a very different purpose. Admiral Sarah Chen stood before a massive holographic display showing the entire galaxy, with human forces marked in blue and Council territories outlined in red. Every senior military officer in human space was present, either in person or through secure holographic links. Captain Morrison had finished presenting his intelligence findings 30 minutes ago. The evidence was undeniable. The Void Swarm was a complete fabrication, and the Galactic Council had manipulated humanity into the largest military buildup in human history. Now the human leadership faced a decision that would determine the future of galactic civilization. "We have 3 options," Admiral Chen began, her voice calm despite the magnitude of the situation. "First, we can expose the Council's deception through diplomatic channels and demand an explanation. Second, we can accept that we have been manipulated and try to find a peaceful resolution that maintains our membership in the galactic community. Third, we can implement Option 0. General Marcus Harrison, commander of Human Ground Forces, spoke first. "Diplomatic exposure will accomplish nothing. The Council species will close ranks to protect their power structure. They have been cooperating with this deception for months, which means they are all complicit. No one will admit to participating in a conspiracy to manipulate humanity." Dr. Marcus Webb, who had spent the last year developing weapons for a war that did not exist, leaned forward in his chair. "We also have to consider the Council's contingency plans. I have been analyzing the intelligence that Captain Morrison gathered, and it is clear that the Council views humanity as an existential threat to their entire system of government." Webb activated a section of the holographic display showing intercepted Council communications. The messages were from high-ranking officials discussing what they called the human problem and potential solutions for containing human expansion. "They are planning to isolate us," Webb continued. "Economic sanctions, technology restrictions, and eventual quarantine of human space until we become a footnote in galactic history. The Council cannot allow humanity's influence to spread to other species because our approach to technology and military development threatens their entire philosophy of governance." Colonel Elena Vasquez, who had trained millions of human soldiers for a fictional war, studied the tactical displays with a professional eye. "From a strategic perspective, we have advantages that the Council cannot match. Our entire civilization has been optimized for warfare over the past year. Every human colony is now a military stronghold. Every civilian has received combat training. Every industrial facility can produce weapons and equipment." She gestured to force deployment charts showing human military assets across known space. "The Council's military forces are designed for ceremonial purposes and limited conflicts. They have not fought a real war in 3,000 years. Their weapons are built to disable rather than destroy. Their soldiers are trained for parades rather than combat. If we choose to fight, we will be facing an enemy that is completely unprepared for total warfare." Admiral Chen nodded grimly, "Which brings us to Option 0. Complete military action against the Galactic Council with the goal of replacing their government with human administration. This would not be a war for territory or resources. It would be the systematic conquest of galactic civilization." The room fell silent as the military leaders considered the implications. Option 0 had been developed as humanity's ultimate contingency plan, to be used only if human civilization faced complete extinction. Now they were discussing using it against the very organization that had welcomed humanity into galactic society. Captain Morrison, the officer whose discovery had started this crisis, raised a troubling point. "We need to consider the moral implications of what we are discussing. The Council may have deceived us, but most of their member species probably had no knowledge of the conspiracy. Are we prepared to conquest innocent civilizations because of the actions of their leaders?" Dr. Webb brought up additional intelligence that answered Morrison's concern. "Actually, the evidence suggests that the major Council species were all aware of Operation Shepherd's Rest. The fabricated evidence required cooperation from multiple governments to create the fake survivor testimonies and modified star charts. This was not a conspiracy by a small group of leaders. It was a coordinated effort by the entire galactic power structure. General Harrison added military context to Webb's analysis. More importantly, the Council's contingency plans make it clear that there will be no peaceful coexistence. They view human military doctrine as a contamination that threatens galactic stability. Even if we try to forgive the deception, they will continue working to contain and eventually eliminate human influence. The debate continued for hours, as military leaders examined every aspect of the situation. Intelligence reports showed that Council species had been quietly moving military assets into positions that could blockade human space. Economic data indicated that trade relationships were being restructured to make humanity dependent on Council resources. Most ominously, communications intercepts revealed that some Council species were discussing the possibility of a preemptive intervention to prevent human military technology from spreading to other civilizations. Admiral Chen called for a formal vote. All evidence indicates that the Galactic Council views humanity as a threat that must be eliminated or contained. They have manipulated us into revealing our military capabilities, while preparing their own forces for eventual action against us. The question is whether we wait for them to act first, or whether we seize the initiative. The voting was conducted through secure channels, with each senior officer casting their decision privately. The results were overwhelming. 847 votes in favor of option 0, with only 23 abstentions and no votes against military action. General Harrison summarized the consensus. The Council has made their intentions clear through their actions. They cannot allow humanity to exist as an independent power, because our very presence threatens their system of control. Since they have chosen to make this a conflict between incompatible civilizations, we will resolve it in humanity's favor. Admiral Chen activated the secure communication system that connected to every human military unit across the galaxy. The message would be transmitted simultaneously to over 2 million human soldiers, sailors, and pilots serving on thousands of ships and installations throughout known space. All human forces. This is Admiral Chen with Priority Alpha authorization. You are hereby ordered to implement Option 0 immediately. Operation Shepherd's Rest was a Council deception designed to manipulate humanity into exhausting our resources on a fictional threat. Intelligence has confirmed that the Void Swarm does not exist and never existed. She paused for a moment before continuing with the orders that would reshape galactic civilization. The Galactic Council has demonstrated that they view humanity as an existential threat to their power structure. They cannot be negotiated with, reasoned with, or trusted. They have chosen to make this a conflict between their system of government and ours. The holographic displays began showing human forces across the galaxy, receiving and acknowledging the transmission. Ships that had been positioned for defense against the Void Swarm were now redeploying for offensive operations against Council targets. Effective immediately. The Galactic Council is dissolved, Admiral Chen continued. Council member species are now under human administration. Species that cooperate with the transition will be treated as allies and partners in the new galactic order. Species that resist will be conquered and occupied until they accept human authority. Dr. Webb activated the technical systems that would implement the first phase of Option 0. Human computer viruses, designed to cripple Void Swarm biological systems, were instead transmitted to Council communication networks. The programs began systematically destroying Council coordination capabilities across thousands of star systems. This is not a war for revenge or punishment, Admiral Chen concluded. This is the replacement of a failed system of government with one that actually works. The galaxy has been run by committee for 3,000 years, prioritizing political balance over progress and stability. It is time for new management. The transmission ended, but the real work was just beginning. Human forces across the galaxy began moving against Council targets with the precision and overwhelming force that had been developed to fight the fictional Void Swarm. The weapons and tactics designed to destroy biological ships worked even better against the elegant but fragile vessels of the Council. Fleet. Option 0 was not just a military operation. It was humanity's declaration that the age of galactic democracy had ended. The committee had been dismissed, and the galaxy would now be administered by the species that had proven most capable of protecting and governing it. The Council had created the perfect storm for their own destruction, and now humanity would use their own deception against them to build something better from the ruins. The First Galactic War lasted exactly 17 months and 4 days, though historians would later argue that calling it a war was misleading. Wars implied that both sides had a chance of winning. What humanity unleashed upon the Galactic Council was something closer to systematic demolition. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the command deck of the UES Retribution, watching through the main viewport as the last Council stronghold surrendered. The crystal spires of Nexus Prime, which had housed galactic government for 3 millennia, were now dark and empty. The ancient structures that had seemed eternal were being carefully dismantled by human engineering teams who were studying every piece of advanced technology they could find. The battle for Nexus Prime had been typical of the entire war. Council forces had expected traditional space combat with elegant maneuvers and limited casualties. Instead, human fleets had arrived with one goal: complete destruction of enemy military capabilities. The battle had lasted less than 6 hours. "Admiral," reported Commander Torres from the tactical station, "the last Council fleet has surrendered at the Rigel system. That represents the final organized military resistance in this sector. All major Council worlds are now under human control." Chen nodded as she reviewed the strategic displays. The galaxy now showed a very different picture than it had 18 months earlier. Blue markers representing human administration covered over 90% of known space. The few remaining red zones were isolated systems that had not yet been contacted by human forces. The war had been won not through superior numbers, but through superior doctrine. While the Council species had spent 3,000 years developing weapons designed to disable enemy ships with minimal damage, humanity had built weapons designed to completely eliminate threats. When Council fleets tried to engage in traditional combat, they discovered that human vessels simply destroyed everything in their path. Dr. Marcus Webb joined Admiral Chen on the command deck, carrying a data tablet that contained the final casualty reports. "The numbers are almost unbelievable," he said quietly. "Total human military casualties for the entire war: 12,847 dead, 31,203 wounded. Council military casualties: 2.3 million dead, 8.7 million captured, and complete destruction of their entire fleet structure." Webb paused before adding the most significant statistic: civilian casualties on both sides, fewer than 50,000, mostly from industrial accidents during the rapid transition to human administration. "We managed to conquer an entire galactic civilization while causing less civilian damage than a typical natural disaster." The low civilian casualties had been a deliberate choice. Human military doctrine focused on destroying enemy military assets while preserving civilian infrastructure and population centers. Unlike the Council's fears, humanity had no interest in genocide or destruction for its own sake. They wanted to rule the galaxy, not destroy it. General Marcus Harrison materialized as a hologram in the command center, transmitting from the occupied Council capital. "Admiral, we have completed the initial assessment of Council governmental systems. As expected, their entire administration was designed for consensus building rather than actual decision-making. It will take months to implement effective governance structures, but the transition is proceeding smoothly." The human approach to galactic administration was radically different from the Council model. Where the Council had maintained peace through careful balance of competing interests, humanity offered something the galaxy had never experienced: honest strength backed by competent leadership. Species that cooperated with the transition found themselves with access to advanced human military technology and genuine partnership in galactic development. The Keplerians, who had always been peaceful scientists, became humanity's closest allies when they realized that human protection would allow them to pursue research without political interference. The Silicon Collective found that human industrial methods could triple their manufacturing capabilities. Species that resisted faced the same fate as the original Council leadership. Human forces were efficient and thorough in their conquest operations, but they were also surprisingly merciful to defeated enemies. Prisoners were treated well, civilian populations were protected, and local customs were respected as long as they did not conflict with human administration. Colonel Elena Vasquez, now serving as Director of Galactic Security, had developed the policies that governed occupied territories. "We learned from Earth's history," she explained to her staff. "Successful conquest requires the cooperation of local populations. We provide better security, better economic opportunities, and better leadership than the Council ever did." Most species discover that human rule is an improvement over Council bureaucracy. The transformation was remarkable. Council worlds that had stagnated under layers of committee oversight were thriving under human administration. Human engineers improved planetary infrastructure. Human scientists shared advanced technologies that the Council had restricted. Human military forces provided security that allowed trade and development to flourish without political interference. Most importantly, humanity had kept its promise about honest strength. Where the Council had maintained order through manipulation and hidden coercion, human authority was direct and transparent. Species that followed human law were protected and supported. Species that challenged human authority faced swift and overwhelming military response. The final confrontation of the war took place in a small conference room aboard the captured Council flagship Eternal Harmony. High Arbiter Yolmeth, the last surviving member of the original Council leadership, faced Admiral Chen across a simple metal table. The ancient crystalline being's light patterns were dim and flickering, indicating either age or defeat. "I do not understand," Yolmeth said through the translation device. "We offered humanity partnership in a galactic community that had maintained peace for 3,000 years. Why did you choose war over cooperation?" Admiral Chen studied the alien leader with cold professional interest. "You did not offer partnership. You offered manipulation disguised as friendship. The moment you decided to lie to us about the Void Swarm, you made cooperation impossible. Partnerships require trust, and trust requires honesty." Yolmeth's light patterns shifted to what might have been confusion or despair. "We were trying to prevent exactly this situation. Human military doctrine threatened the stability of galactic civilization. We needed to find a way to contain your expansion without direct confrontation." "You succeeded," Chen replied. "You found a way to avoid direct confrontation by ensuring that the confrontation would be completely one-sided. Your deception gave us 18 months to optimize our entire civilization for warfare while you practiced fighting an enemy that did not exist, though may." Admiral activated a holographic display, showing the current state of galactic civilization. Shipping lanes that had been disrupted by Council bureaucracy were now flowing freely under human protection. Scientific research that had been stalled by political considerations was advancing rapidly. Most importantly, the constant threat of war between Council species had been eliminated because there was now only one military power in the galaxy. The Council model failed because it was based on the assumption that all species could be trusted to cooperate voluntarily, Chen continued. 3,000 years of peace had made you forget that some conflicts can only be resolved through superior force. You created elaborate systems to avoid making hard decisions, which meant that when hard decisions became necessary, you were incapable of making them. Yolmeth remained silent as Chen delivered humanity's final judgment on the Council system. Humanity does not rule through committees or consensus building. We rule through competence and strength. Species that prove themselves capable of partnership receive genuine equality and cooperation. Species that prove themselves incapable of responsible self-governance receive direct administration until they learn how to function properly. The war crimes trials that followed were swift and fair. Council leaders who had participated in Operation Shepherd's Rest were sentenced to imprisonment on carefully selected worlds where they could observe the results of human administration. Most would eventually acknowledge that galactic civilization was more prosperous and secure under human leadership than it had ever been under Council democracy. High Arbiter Yolmeth spent the rest of his life on a garden world populated by former Council bureaucrats. He would often stand in the colony's observation tower, watching as human ships maintained perfect security for the peaceful civilian population below. The irony was not lost on him. The species the Council had tried to contain through deception had created the most stable galactic government in recorded history. 10 years after the end of the First Galactic War, Admiral Chen reviewed the classified files from Operation Shepherd's Rest one final time, before ordering them sealed in the historical archives. The documents would serve as a reminder of how quickly a civilization could fall when it chose manipulation over honest leadership. The human galactic protectorate now governed over 1,200 star systems, and 47 different species. Trade was flourishing under human protection. Scientific advancement was proceeding at unprecedented rates.